Hello and welcome back to another preview. We head to Aronimink for the PGA Championship. It's an exciting time. I love majors. I like this course. I don't know a lot about it, but going through it, I think we're going to have a really, really good major. I don't think it's going to play as difficult as probably some would like, but I do think that we're going to be in for a really good week of golf, which is the most important thing. As always, one of the things I like to go through is I have a look at my previous week. So we had the Truist Championship, another signature event. Thankfully, we are out of the signature event phase. So a really good week, not a really good week betting. Some really interesting storylines to come out of the Quail Hollow. One of my favorite courses to I guess from a viewing perspective, provides so many challenges, and I think we had a really good first time winner here, Christopher Reeton. I'm not sure how it's truly pronounced, but yeah, look, there was a lot to like about his game. He's had some really good moments so far this in his first PGA Tour season, so I was happy to see him get over the line. I think there's a few players who really kind of set themselves up well for the PGA Championship this week. But like a few things that come out of it. So Matt McCarthy, his first round was honestly one of the most unbelievable rounds I've seen. He broke a PGA Tour record for in terms of putting distances, and look, he got really lucky with some, I guess, favorable pin locations for that favored kind of a left-hander. But um, I think probably a fairly underrated guy heading into Aronimink this weekend. I think it's something like three or four of his last starts have all been kind of top 25 finishes. He does seem to be a fairly consistent golfer. So look, that's someone who's shown that he can shoot low. Did perform well at the Masters. I say well, it's well for someone of, I guess, his player profile there. So someone I'm probably definitely looking at this week. Rory was a weird one. His round two, I think probably everyone thought he was probably just going to steamroll things and I guess, make a fairly boring event. And then his round three was just absolutely horrific. Like, lost over 5 strokes total. I think that has to be one of his worst individual rounds. I don't know where that ranks, but I can't imagine it ranks too far away from the bottom. Cam as well, with his, he was 9 under through 17 and bogey's the last and round three. And I think you probably thought it's business as usual for Cam with the way he'd be playing, certainly the way he'd been putting, and then he kind of had that four putt debacle in round four, and that was pretty much him. Yeah, look, the last real story apart from the winner was, I guess, Alex Fitzpatrick. I think most probably true golf fans, probably were pretty okay with the fact that, look, he played some good golf at the Zurich, and I don't think I guess the notion of, his brother Matt earned his PGA Tour card for him. I mean, this is a guy who he'd already won on the DP World Tour this year. He'd kind of been trending up on that tour for the last couple of years, and look, he played good last week, played really good this week. To be honest, prob probably he's kicking himself. Because yeah, look, to be honest, I think he had every chance. He had every chance on Sunday, and wasn't able to get the job done. But like, I think for how he acquired his PGA Tour card, and I guess the all of the scuttlebutt, if you want to say it, around did he deserve this, yes or no? I think in the last 2 weeks he's definitely shown in signature events that he well and truly deserves to be on the PGA Tour. So you like to see that. And then yeah, Christopher Reeton, as I kind of said, like, has had some really good moments so far. Like, this is a guy who had a really, really good DP World Tour season. 27, 28 years old. He's someone with a little bit of experience, and uh, to be honest, I was really happy to see him, seeing as I had absolutely zero chance of winning any bets I think I was happy to see him win over the guys who kind of finished around. I think one of the things for me and something that I kind of highlighted was, around the Green Mile, and he goes one under on Saturday and then even par through Sunday. I think that was one of the things that was kind of most impressive watching him sort of close out the event was, just how, I guess, just how clinical he was in that 16, 17, 18 stretch we saw. Nikolai Højgaard, who was in contention there, he bogeys the 16th when he had a 9-iron in hand, which is just outrageous for how long that hole plays. And then, 18 was such a tough birdie hole all week. So yeah, look, super happy for him. Um, what a spot to win your first PGA Tour event. Um, Look, my bets for the week were I bet a Fitzpatrick. I bet the wrong one. And look, I stand by this. Like I wanted to take one of the top five guys, and to be honest, I took the guy with the biggest price because like I probably was never going to bet Rory just with the layoff. Uh, it felt silly to bet Cam after he'd won everything. But yeah, Ludwig, I'm still a little bit unsure on with the closing ability. And yeah, look, I was going to take Fitzy with the way he's been playing and being the biggest price. And, he's had a good finish here previously, and yeah, that was pretty disappointing. He was never really in it. This one I think was a learning one. Sam Burns. This one was largely a putting play. He had some ridiculous putting numbers at the PGA Championship, and I guess I probably overlooked that because his approach numbers and pretty much everything across the board was fairly atrocious. He was never in it, and that was a donation. So yeah, I think one of the things I was thinking about during the week was as the tournament was going on, I was like, I've played Sam Burns from a pure putting perspective, and I probably could have looked at say someone like Bridgman, who's also just an exceptional putter and like at a much bigger price. He didn't really do too much on the week, but that's a guy who had a significantly better week than Sam Burns, and I guess if you're looking, you know, if you're reviewing the process and the work that you've done, I think it's something like that's probably a learning spot for me. If I'm going to play a guy for a particular upside in his game, like if there's a guy out there who's he's won a signature event already, the putting is I guess questionably maybe better than Sam Burns. You're getting a bigger price. It probably made a lot more sense for me to play that. Gary Woodland was probably the best of my four guys I highlighted here. Was pretty steady Eddie. I think he finished. Where is he? Yeah, T17. Look, wasn't really in it for much of the weekend, but look, T17 for the price I got him at is not too bad. I'll take that. I'll take that shot. As I said, I'll take that shot every day with him. Especially I guess I faded maybe Ben Griffin on the back of his performance at Doral. I'm not even sure what Ben Griffin did. Let's find out. Probably should have done this research before. T63. There we go. One of my wins for the week was fading him. And Taylor Pendrith. Look at this price. You know what? I'm not absolutely not critical. It was one of those. Yep, he's got the game off the tee. Can the putting survive? And can the irons get streaky? The answer to both of those questions was no. So that's the truest. Probably a pretty poor week for me personally, especially if I'm taking one of the big guys. If they are kind of never in it, that's a bit of a tough feeling for me going into next week. But Yeah, let's look at Aronimink. So it's in Newton Square, Pennsylvania. It's a plays a little bit under 7,400 yards, par 70. So we've got four par three, sorry, yeah, four par threes, 12 par fours, and only two par fives, which will make things interesting. Bent grass for the greens, fairways, and rough. Bunkers 174, which is the most that the players will see on tour. We've got three water holes. This is a Donald Ross course with a restoration done by Gilhans in 2017. The comp courses are Oakmont, Oak Hill, Murfield Village, Riviera, Pinehurst Number Two, East Lake, Philadelphia Cricket Club, and Sedgefield CC. So this is a course that I'll be honest, I had very little exposure or memory to. The only event that I can ever remember watching was the BGA the BMW Championship in 2018. Um, so I had to go through quite a little bit of, I guess, just some of those aerial shots and I guess flyover drone videos, which are really nice to be honest. It's a beautiful course. I think it's going to be a really fun watch visually. I think what you get this week, tight fairways, thick rough, elevated greens with some complicated approaches to them, and a bit of elevation change. I think this week with the large greens, it's going to highlight the importance around proximity play and kind of three putt avoidance as opposed to just greens of regulation. I'll kind of get into that when we review the some of the previous events, but yeah, look, these greens are massive. And with all the different contours and stuff, I think this lag putting and yeah, three putt avoidance is going to be so crucial. Guys are going to hit so many greens that I don't think it's really going to be relevant to, I guess, how people perform. Yeah, and so as I said, 2017 Gilhance restoration, which was done just before that BMW Championship. So largely kind of focusing around bunkering. It added 102 bunkers, and which puts it over the top and makes it the most amount of bunkers that players will see this season. And also adding some length on some selected holes and expanding green sizes to greens that were already massive. So that is Aronimink. We'll have a look at the layout here. Just want to highlight just kind of a few. So we've got the first hole here. Look pretty stock standards. Thank you. To reach these bunkers here, 340. So yeah, like I guess there's a decision there. Like you're probably pretty safe there. This is where I guess it gets kind of interesting. So you've got these kind of six small bunkers here. If you want to take an aggressive line, and I guess this is kind of what the restoration was kind of, I guess, almost wanting to eliminate was just the ability to absolutely overpower a course with the driver. And so you've got 330 there to clear those, which I think most players will probably try and do. I mean, I can imagine I would. The third hole here, this is interesting because you've got kind of bunkers on both sides. So you've got 270 to the first set of bunkers. Or we've got 335 to the next set. Those back bunkers there they won't be in play. So you imagine that, I guess there's a real decision there, but the decision is, I guess, only one part of the puzzle there. You do have bunkers on the left and right side if you are choosing to lay up in between that. So you do have to be precise. The fourth, that first set of bunkers there, you're looking at about 260. And the next set is about 340. So that's pretty straightforward. Not a worry there. And the fifth, we've got a par five. Sorry, par three. Once again, protected pretty well with the four bunkers at the front. Another set of bunkers here, kind of protecting. So, I mean, the fairway is fairly open here. It's just 240 to the front. And if you want to take that on, like I can't see that's a tough. I mean, that feels like a tough landing spot for me. I guess 270 probably to clear it, but then you have to be so precise there with about what looks like 20 bunkers all in the space of probably about 100 yards. So I think that's a hole. Players take their medicine, lay back. The seventh, and this is a pretty straightforward one, but at the green, as you can see here, is kind of, let's see if I can move this over, really well protected. Um, I guess with the thick rough, it probably does actually create a question. Where's your miss here? If we've got thick rough here on the right-hand side, are you actually okay leaving it in that bunker? And I guess with all of the elevation changes and whatnot, you're potentially looking at probably some awkward and sticky lies. And we've got another par three with water. That one here seems pretty fine. We've got a couple of bunkers at the front. Um, it is hard to say, but like that does look like a bit of a hill there. So like I guess that kind of answer that's the same question, right? Where is your miss? And we've got the ninth. Yeah, the first set of bunkers there is 310. Most players should be pretty comfortable there. This looks like it'd be a fair scoring hole this week. You do have kind of a couple of bunkers here, which looks like it's kind of hidden under the shade. To clear that, that'll be maybe 330, I'm guessing. Whoa, no, I was absolutely wrong. Yeah, we got a landy spot there. I mean, most guys won't be able to hit that. We'll head on to the back nine. Once again, more bunkers. There's so many bunkers here, my God. So 280. You do have water here just in front of the front left of the green, but that's pretty standard. The 11th, more of these little tiny greens. God, these would be such a nuisance. It does really feel like kind of I guess a thinking man's course. So 250 kind of to where it starts if you want to overpower this. And I'm obviously using this kind of just based on where this that says the tee box is. Like these yardages won't be exact. So 330 to I guess get over these almost look like teeth. This little bunker arrangements here. To the 12th. And we got to the front set of bunkers here. 210. Even I could overhit that. So your landing spot. Oh, you can probably, yeah, players will probably take that. Yeah, probably. There you go, 330 to clear those. You got a nice little landing spot in there. 280. Might not even be able to have a go at this. What is that to the front? 360, probably not. It gives you, I say, kind of a thinking man's course. Like there's going to be a lot of these weird yardages with some of these shots, depending on how you try and, I guess, fit your drives in. Another par three. Interesting bunkering there. Hmm. And there's no real bunkers there. 280, that'll be fine. That is very narrow. That's another thing, right? Like there's not a lot of bunkering at play with the drive here, but until we kind of get up to the approach, but that is a skinny fairway. So with the thick rough, you're obviously not going to want to miss there. And then par five. Yeah, so 270 to that to get those front bunkers, 370 to hit those ones there. You're absolutely not doing that. The attacking line there is probably going to be everything because if we look at the second shot, like that's probably one where players are going to have to be okay being in the bunker if they are going for it in two. You almost have to with this little bunker arrangement here. It's a tough kind of landing spot, especially from a decent distance out. Another par three with a bit of water to add a little bit of drama. And then the 18th. And what have we got to this? So 300. So there's it'll give you a lot to think about. I guess it will really depend on maybe the weather, which is a good segue. But I think with the thick rough, narrow fairways, and all of these small bunkers, like there are so many bunkers that it's not a course where you're just going to be like, yep, I'm just taking this line, and you don't really have to think about it. You're gonna have to kind of plot your way around the course. All right, so let's look at the weather. All right, so for the wind finder, so this is located in Newton Square. I think this radar is a few kilometers from the course, maybe a little bit less. A little bit of rain Thursday and Friday potential. This is mainly like a wind, I guess what the wind looks like. Nothing too much doing for the little bit of wind Friday morning and some wind gusts that probably don't really affect too many players. Certainly not enough for you to kind of say you're favoring the AM PM or PM AM wave. I think Saturday and Sunday, this is kind of what I'm looking for. With a little bit of weather around Thursday, Friday. If the course is soft, it's obviously going to play a lot easier. Uh, with the temperature, you can see there, it kind of gets to the air temperature 26 degrees, 27, 28 on Sunday. If that plays firm and fast, then these greens could be an absolute nightmare to play. But as always, the weather changes at any given moment. All right, we'll finish up with kind of just a little bit of course history. We've only got three tournaments of note here. So we had the 2018 BMW Championship, which Keegan Bradley won by in a playoff over Justin Rose. A couple of things: top 10 and tied. Eight finished in the top 10 for strokes gained putting. The course played a lot shorter at just over 7,000 yards and 77% of greens in reg, which is one of the things I kind of touched on. Like players are just going to hit these greens in reg, and it's not really going to be a true indicator for success this week. And yeah, the only other events we've got, the 2010 and the 2011 AT&T National. The first one was won by Justin Rose at 10 under, and the second one was won by Nick Watney at 13 under. So I think, yeah, I think it's going to play very interesting. The fact that we don't have like a lot of history at the course to kind of to bank on, and the fact that there's no way the setup for the 2018 BMW is going to be anywhere close to kind of what we're going to see this week. So I think it makes it interesting. I mean, if you just want to go off course history, then Justin Rose winning it and losing in a shootout or a playoff, that's probably your bet. But no, look, I'm looking forward to it. So yeah, we'll kind of do another video with kind of just I guess the keys this week in terms of course success. And then yeah, going through some player profiles, picks, and some DFS sleepers. So thank you very much, and I'll see you in a couple of days.